Hi there, this is Alex from Whiskey Weight Loss. This video is a series of clips from a podcast appearance I did with my friend Jackson. On the podcast, we talk about some of the key principles I use to help my clients get back in shape, how much whiskey you can actually drink while losing weight, and then also some really tactical advice that you can steal and implement as soon as you are finished watching. Hope you enjoy it.
Talk me through when you're working with, your clients, how does that initial setup look like? Like, what do you take them through to be like, okay, this is and without revealing too much of your process, what does it look like for you to take somebody through that and establish those healthy habits? What are some of the first things you look at, while also, again, allowing them to enjoy it?
Absolutely. So I have no secrets.
Yeah.
I'm an open book when it comes to this stuff. I really am. So when it comes to like big picture philosophy stuff, I'm a big believer in the 90-10 rule.
Okay.
A lot of people will say the 80-20 rule, which I think is great for maintenance. I'm a believer that during weight loss, 90-10 is a really good thing, which is 90% of the time we eat enjoyable fuel.
Yep.
And then 10% of the time you eat or drink for fun.
Right.
And I think that applies to a lot of trainers. It's like for some people it's wine, for some people it's cake, for some people it's whiskey. And those are my people.
Yeah.
So when I work with clients, a lot of the time, especially early on, we'll kind of do like a nutrition auditing process where I'm like, hey, give me 2 weeks of food diary.
Yeah.
And then I can go through and it's like, hey, we can optimize this here. We can change this. We can swap this for this. I think this nutrition structure would work really well for your lifestyle and how you live, right? I've got some people who are, work from home, office, barely move from their desk. I've got other people who are realtors who never sit still and are always driving, right?
Yeah.
Very different scenarios, very different nutritional needs. So that's where the 90% comes in. It's how do we optimize for that while also making it fun? Like I'm a big believer in, hey, like don't eat salads all the time. That's really boring.
Yeah.
Instead, let's find a great way to do like burgers and French fries, but not, in a calorie efficient way. In a way that we've got good calorie to protein ratios. We're able to sneak fiber into it. Like there's lots of ways to make genuinely enjoyable food that also aligns with weight loss. So that's a lot of the start of it. Exercise is exercise. There's nothing whiskey specific.
Yeah.
We don't drink before working out. Bad idea.
So your clients don't go on any of those beer runs and just replace with whiskey?
Could they? Sure. Do I recommend it? No. They are great fun though. I don't know if you've done beer miles, but they're a good time. They really are a good time. But so that like a lot of the focus is on nutrition. We talk about being strategic when it comes to alcohol. So a lot of the time people ask me like, well, how much can I drink? And I'm like, that's a terrible way to look at it.
Yeah.
The way I look at alcohol is that there are certain social occasions, especially when you're into whiskey as a hobby, where alcohol adds value to the occasion.
Yeah.
Right? If you are going to a whiskey tasting, not drinking whiskey is going to kind of be a bummer.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a time where maybe you have more than one drink. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, 7, depending on how long your whiskey tasting is. But you want to get that full, rich experience. Whereas sitting alone watching TV on a Tuesday, really terrible reason to have a drink.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm a big believer in, some people, can't do alcohol, and that's totally fine. They're just not the people I work with. Right? And I'll bump into people. Occasionally I'll do like professional networking events, and they're like, oh, whiskey weight loss, that's cool. I've been sober for 7 years. I'm like, cool. I'm really happy for you. We probably shouldn't work together. And that's probably fine. But the people that they're like, oh, how much can I drink? And it's like, well, maybe 1 week it's 1 to 2 drinks. Maybe it's date night and you meet up with a buddy and, you grab coffee and maybe grab a drink afterwards. Other times it might be significantly more than that, right? I've got clients that go to whiskey festivals. They go to distilleries. Like I'm part of a local whiskey club and we chartered a bus, went up to a local distillery and drank for like 3 hours and then came home. That was definitely more than 1 drink.
Yeah.
But that's the 10%.
Right.
And so, I think a lot of it, you've just got to be really strategic about it. Like a very common refrain in fitness is everything in moderation. And I get the sentiment, but I also call bullshit. Because, like, if you truly mean it, everything in moderation, cool. So can we do like like cocaine in moderation?
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Right.
Let's not do that. Let's be strategic about this. So instead of everything in moderation, I'll say, like, let's do strategic balance. And it really ties into this idea of, like, 90% of the time we eat for fun fuel, and then 10% of the time we just eat for fun.
Yeah.
Me again, I just wanted to introduce this next segment of the video. So Jackson and I talked for a bit, but then we circled back to alcohol, and I wanted to share with you some of the tactical stuff that you can go and implement right after this video ends. We talk about things like munchies, and we talk about things like environmental design, as well as the physiological hangover and how that can sometimes be different from a psychological hangover.
By the way, I did want to circle back one more time on the alcohol
absolutely.
side of things. So just to give listeners a little bit more tactical stuff. So when it comes to alcohol, you've got the balance part of it. That's obviously a big one. I think one of the things that a lot of people are familiar with is like I've had a few drinks and now I want the munchie, or I've got the munchies and I want all of the food.
Yeah.
So there's that element to it. And there's not a whole lot you can do about that other than drink less and don't have certain stuff inside the house that drunk you is really going to want to eat all of later.
Yeah.
So there's an element of, I call it like environmental design, which I think a lot of trainers focus on. It's right. Okay, like, it's not to say you can't have ice cream, just don't keep ice cream in the house. And if you really want it, go and drive and get it.
Yeah.
But chances are it's enough of a barrier for you to realize that you don't actually really want ice cream, you're just bored.
Yeah.
Right? So that's an element of it. I think something that people don't realize with alcohol is that obviously you have, like, some people get hangovers, like, psychologically speaking, you always have a physiological hangover. So even if you don't get hangovers, I'm using air quotes for people who are listening, there is a physiological hangover there that you can't really escape.
Yeah.
And when that happens, your activity level, the fancy term for it is NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis, but basically, like, how active you are, how many steps you take, almost always takes a dive the day after, more than a couple drinks. Also, what happens is the part of your brain that seeks out, like, high-fat, high-salt, high-carb foods is a little bit more hungry, right? Instead, when you go to the office and normally you walk past the donuts in the break room, the day after a hangover, that's going to feel like a really long 10 feet. And before you realize it, you're like, and one donut. Oh, that was really good. 2 donuts. I've had 2. I may as well have 3 donuts.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not just the day of, it's also the day after.
Yeah.
And if you're not aware of that and pre-planning to take that into account, it will, like, there's a reason people tell you to give up drinking when you're trying to lose weight. It's not a helpful beverage.
Yeah.
But when you are able to be strategic about it and have strategic balance, you can, make the best of a not so great situation.